Little Green's Journey. Sun set over Hati village. The children sat in a circle, eyes wide, as they listened to the old storyteller. His voice was deep, like the wind in the trees. When 5 giant towers of bugs rise from the ground, the earth cries for 3 days, and then something terrible happens, he said. A little girl tugged his sleeve.
But didn't the boy in the story stop it?
The storyteller nodded. Not stop, change. Let me tell you about Little Green and the magic that woke up the world. Little Green was a boy without a real family. He lived in the chief's house, but he was not truly welcome. He eats too much food, the chief's wife complained. He works hard, the chief said, but his voice was tired. Green sat alone in his small bed, staring at the little bag he had packed, a small piece of bread, a fire starter, and a feather from his mother, her only gift to him. That night, he ran away. Green walked deep into the forest. The trees stretched high above him, whispering in the wind. His stomach rumbled. Then he heard a strange sound. 3 notes, like a song, but not from any bird he knew. He followed the sound and found an old stone temple covered in vines. Inside stood a statue of a woman with a round belly, as if she held something inside. Green knelt before her. If you have any magic, he whispered, make me strong, make me belong. Then the statue breathed. The air smelled like rain and old books. Green's head spun. When he opened his eyes, a vine had wrapped around his wrist. But it wasn't just a plant, it was alive. Tiny buds pulsed like hearts. He gripped a fallen branch. The vine on his wrist stretched out, wrapping around the wood, turning it dark and strong. Green wasn't just a boy anymore. He was part of something bigger, and his journey had just begun. The River of Tears, Terra City. Green's journey to Terra City was long and dusty. By the time he reached the river, he was tired. But even before he saw it, he smelled something strange, like sweet flowers mixed with something bad, like burnt metal. When he finally saw the Blackwater River, it looked sick. The water was thick, dark, and bubbling like a giant pot of soup. Green stepped onto the old bridge. It creaked under his feet. Below, a broken doll floated in the water, its hair covered in oil. He'd feel the river's pain. The marketplace was quiet and empty. The wooden stalls looked like broken teeth. A chalkboard still listed fish for sale, but the baskets were filled with only bones and trash. Green gave a silver coin to an old woman. The river is cursed, she whispered. People say there's a water demon, he muttered, born from all the waste we threw in. Night. Green stepped into the thick, sticky water. It clung to him like glue, whispering, you're just another stain. His vine bracelet glowed bright green, and suddenly the river let out a terrible cry. People gathered, watching in fear. Then the river monster rose, but it didn't roar. It cried. Its body was made of the river's pain. Green placed his glowing hands on the monster's head. The creature shuddered, coughing up black sludge, but with each breath it changed. Its sharp claws softened into gentle otter paws. Its rotten smell turned fresh like rain. In the end, it wasn't a monster at all. It was a Water-Wisp. Water-Wisp walked up to the little girl whose brother had been sick. Its antlers glowed, and as it touched her, the sickness faded. Before Green left, the villagers made him a cloak from old fishing nets. Thank you so much, Little Green. Little Green, leave the village and continue his journey. Paraparu Town. Little Green walked into Parupa Town and wrinkled his nose. Yuck! The air smelled like burning trash. Black smoke filled the sky, and piles of garbage were everywhere. In the middle of town was a big, noisy factory. It blew out dirty smoke like a dragon. The people looked sad and tired. Little Green knew he had to help, cleaning up. He started picking up trash. He showed the kids how to sort it into bins, glass in one, paper in another. At first, the grown-ups didn't care, but the kids thought it was fun. They played games and cleaned the streets together. Soon, the town looked better. The leaders noticed and shut down the smoky factory. They built a recycling center instead. One day, boom, the old factory exploded. Out came a fire monster made of flames and trash. It roared, "I'll burn everything!" People screamed and ran, but Little Green stood still. His magic bracelet glowed. A tiny water spirit said, "We need more power to stop it." The kids ran to help. They brought plastic bottles and old cans. The bracelet turned the trash into blue energy. Whoosh! Little Green shot a big wave of water at the monster. The fire monster hissed and disappeared. The sky turned blue again, and the sun came out. Everyone cheered. From that day on, Parupa Town stayed clean. The kids taught others about recycling, and no one burned trash anymore. Little Green smiled. "Time for the next adventure," he said, and off he went with the water spirit. Usus Village. Little Green met Usus villagers leaving their homes, dragging sacks of belongings. "Why are you leaving?" he asked. A woman sighed. "We cut down too many trees. Now the land is dry, and landslides destroyed our farms. We can't stay." Little Green hurried to their village. What he saw broke his heart. Cracked soil, dusty air, and no streams. An old man muttered, "We thought cutting trees would make us rich. Now it's too late." "It's never too late," said Little Green. "Let's plant new trees. They'll heal the land." The villagers agreed. They dug holes and planted seeds. Kids helped, giggling as they patted soil around tiny saplings. Slowly, green shoots sprouted, and the air smelled fresher. But one day, the ground shook. A giant earth beast erupted from the soil. Its rocky voice boomed, "Who dares disturb my land?" The villagers hid, but Little Green stood tall. "We hurt this land before, but we're fixing it. Give us a chance." The beast glared. "Trees take years to grow. Prove you'll keep trying." The villagers worked harder. Kids carried water, elders planted seeds, and everyone woke early to care for the saplings. The beast watched silently. One morning, the beast returned. "You've worked hard, but the soil is weak. Here, this will help." It handed Little Green a glowing book. The Compost Guide. Mix leaves, food scraps, and dirt to make compost. It's food for the soil. The villagers made compost piles. They sprinkled the rich, earthy mix around the saplings. Weeks later, the trees grew taller and flowers bloomed. When Little Green left, the village was green again. "Every small effort helps the earth," he said. With a bag of compost, he skipped off to his next adventure. Mata Town. Streetlights blazed, neon signs flashed, and houses buzzed with TVs and gadgets. It was so bright, you could read outside at midnight. But the town had a problem. It was too bright every night. Here's why every named this place the city that never slept. One day, a boy named Little Green arrived. He saw the tired trees and heard the whirring machines. "This town needs a rest," he said. Little Green stood in the town square. "Let's turn off extra lights for 1 hour every night," the crowd argued. "But I need light for homework," cried a girl. "Customers will leave," shouted a shopkeeper. Little Green grinned. "Just 1 hour. Turn off one lamp. Even stars need time to shine." The mayor nodded. We'll try it. Tonight. At 8 p.m., Marta Town dimmed its lights. Elders pointed at stars they'd forgotten existed. Little Green walked the quiet streets. No TV noise, just laughter and stories. An old woman smiled and said, "Long ago, this town was called Gaia's Eye. You know why?" She pointed to the center of town, where a huge lake glittered. In the middle of the lake stood a lighthouse. When it shone, the whole town looked like a glowing goddess's eye. But years ago, the lighthouse broke. People forgot and just added more lights everywhere. After an hour, Little Green shared his last secret. The sun and wind give free energy. Let's use them. Citizens agreed what Little Green said. Soon, solar panels gleamed on rooftops, and wind turbines spun like pinwheels. The old lighthouse was repaired too, now powered by sunlight. Marta Town still glowed at night, but gently, like a twinkling eye. Late night, Little Green felt a strange shiver. He raced to the town's power plant and gasped. A creepy shadow monster was forming in the dark. It was the Electro Fiend, a crackling creature made from wasted electricity. The Electro Fiend had glowing eyes and a body that buzzed like a broken TV. It's growing because people waste energy, Little Green realized. He raised his magic wristband to fight, but it flickered weakly. The monster shot painful sparks at him. Little Green sprinted to the town square and yelled, "Turn off lights and TVs now! Save energy for 1 minute!" People listened. Lights switched off, TVs went dark, and chargers unplugged. Suddenly, Little Green's wristband glowed super bright. It had soaked up all the saved power. "Take this!" he shouted, blasting the Electro Fiend with a beam of green light. The monster screeched, "No!" and vanished like popped bubblegum. Little Green grinned. Real light isn't about wasting power. It's about using it smart. Everyone started saving energy like a fun game. Solar panels and wind turbines popped up everywhere. That night, Little Green finally rested until he heard a whisper in his dreams. "Help me, help me." His heart pounded. He woke up and found himself walking toward something big and dark in the distance. And then, from the ground, 5 giant shadow worms began to rise. The air grew heavy. The sky darkened and the earth trembled. Cracks split open in the distance as 5 enormous shadows burst from the ground. The winds howled and the land shook. It was like the end of the world had begun. Little Green stood on the barren land, his heart pounding. At first, he thought the figures were giant worms, but then he realized they were the fingers of the Dark King. Each finger brought a disaster: tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, droughts, and disease. These were not natural disasters. They were the revenge of the Dark King, his fury spreading destruction across the land. Little Green raised his magic wristband, trying to protect the people with a green energy shield, but before it could fully form, a lightning strike shattered it. The people's hope crumbled. They saw how powerless they were against this overwhelming force. But even when all seemed lost, Little Green refused to give up. Then, something strange happened. Despite the darkness, he felt a familiar warmth within the terrifying energy. He gasped. "This power, it feels like kindness and love." Little Green stood firm and shouted, You are Gaia, the Mother of Earth," he whispered in shock. Gaia was supposed to be the gentle, nurturing spirit of the planet. How had she become the Dark King? At his words, the monster froze. Pain flickered in its eyes as a battle raged within. Suddenly, Little Green's wristband glowed with intense heat. The crystal at its core detached, floating into the sky and shining with blinding green light. At that moment, People from all over the world felt the call of energy. Those who had learned to protect nature, who had changed their ways because of Little Green, lifted their hands toward the sky. Their faith and hope turned into beams of green light flowing into the floating crystal. Far away, deep within an ancient temple, a statue of a pregnant woman began to crack. From within, a pure glowing heart emerged, the heart of the earth. It wasn't a statue of a woman, it was Gaia herself, carrying the energy of life, waiting to be reborn. Gaia trembled as darkness and light clashed within her. Little Green, using the last of his strength, threw the crystal toward Gaia's heart. A wave of pure light spread across the land, washing away the darkness. The disasters vanished. The sky cleared. Gaia, now in her true form, opened her eyes, warm, kind, and full of gratitude. "You have saved me," she whispered, "not with power, but with love and hope." She smiled, spreading her arms. A final wave of energy restored the earth, making it more beautiful than ever. Little Green stood in the center of it all, tears in his eyes. He realized he was not the hero. The real heroes were the people, the ones who chose to protect their home. As Gaia merged back into the land, a new promise was made. The world would never take nature for granted again.